Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Board with Each Other, the board gaming podcast that looks at board games through the lens of playing them at two players, whether that is with your BFF, your significant other, or that witch that just keeps putting really random ingredients in a pot but makes very, very tasty soup.
Hey, that's one nice way to talk about me.
Well, it needs to be said. I'm Al Simpson and I'm joined as ever by my player two, lovely wife, Hannah Kelly.
Hi, and also quite good cook apparently.
Very good cook, just for the record. Today we are talking about the potion-making randomness that is Quacks of Quedlingberg. I hope I pronounced that right. Quacks of Quedlingberg is...
Push your luck.
Push your luck game, yeah. That's what I was trying to think of the best way to describe it. Where you take the role of a witch or alchemist or, you know, somebody who just likes putting ingredients into a pot, and you basically manage a bag full of ingredients. On your turn, you take ingredients out of your bag simultaneously with other players and place them into your pot. The different ingredients all have different effects that vary from game to game, but the one constant is cherry bombs. Cherry bombs, basically, all ingredients have a point value, and that point value dictates how many spaces along the pot track you put each ingredient. And if you exceed more than 7 points worth of cherry bombs, your potion explodes, and you have negative effects at the scoring phase. Once you have finished putting ingredients into your pot, you can stop at any time. You then go to sort of an end of the round phase, and in that phase you gain victory points depending on how far along the pot you've got, how far along the track you've got.
So other players can keep placing, so once you've stopped, the other players around the table can keep placing until they choose to stop.
Yeah, so each you operate simultaneously and each person just passes when they want to pause or their potion explodes. You then get the victory points, and you also get to buy new ingredients depending again on how far along you've got in the pot track. The kicker is if your potion exploded, you can only do one of those two things, whereas if you didn't explode, you can do both. Victory points are then calculated, and you begin a new round. There's a few twists in the tail here. The first one is there is a deck of cards. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called, but there's a deck of cards that you draw a card, basically an event deck that you draw at the start of every turn, and those have impacts for the rest of the round. Most of them are positive. Some only affect one player, some affect everybody. You also accumulate rubies during the game, depending on where you end in the scoring track and through card effects, etc. You can use those rubies to move your water droplet up. Your water droplet starts at the 0 point, but it basically gives you a head start in subsequent rounds.
So the more you move it up, the further along the pot you start, which means you accumulate more victory points and therefore also points to spend in the shop.
Yeah, exactly. You also have a flask. You can flip your flask over to return one of your cherry bombs to the bag, but you must do that before your potion explodes. You can't do it if you draw a cherry bomb and your potion's exploded.
So you have to do it immediately when you draw that cherry bomb, as long as the pot hasn't exploded. You can't then go back and wipe one from the board that you've already placed.
No, you can't. It's a one-use item, but you can refill it using the aforementioned rubies. You start the game with a number of ingredients out of the table. As turns go on, more ingredients get added, and the ingredients is where the complexity of this game lies, where all the ingredients have different effects. So, for example, there's an ingredient that if you place it on a space with a ruby, you get to take that ruby immediately. There are other ones that basically let you save them and put them down when you want. And there's a huge variety of different effects and different ingredients, and I won't go through even the quarter of them here. The game suggests that you play the ingredients that are in sets. So I think in the base game there are 4 sets that come, 4 or 5, and they recommend you play them as a set because they're balanced. But as you get more into the game, you can always just shuffle them and deal them out randomly. As the turns go on, some turns have special effects, such as adding a new ingredient for purchase, or when you get about halfway through the game, you have to add another cherry bomb into your bag to sort of balance out the ingredients that you've been buying. You can only buy 2 ingredients per turn, so that's your limit. So no matter how many points you get, you can't just go buck wild and buy 5 different cheap ingredients, for example, in the late game. And play continues until the 9th and final round, where you score.
The only thing you've not mentioned is the final Alchemist expansion where you have spells.
So I haven't mentioned any of the expansions yet.
Oh, okay.
So that's the base game. We bought Quacks with, we got the Mega Box, which is basically includes the Herb Witches and the Alchemist expansions. So our experience of the game has always mainly been with playing with those expansions. So one expansion is more major than the other, which is Alchemist, which adds another player board, basically, and adds another phase to the game. The smaller expansion, Herb Witches, basically allows you to have 3 one-use powers that you use during the game, which are, again, randomised at the start, where you give coins to a witch and they will do certain things for you. But yes, I think that's a fair summary of the rules. Anything else you want to add?
So I would say the thing about the Alchemist expansion is that you get to pick at the start of the game which one particular spell, and that allows you to do different things in game. So when you come to spend your victory point, it allows you to add sort of almost like another multiplier or another bonus on top of that, so it just adds a little bit, I think, of strategic depth.
Yeah, the different spells that you choose vary quite significantly in terms of the effects that they have on the game, and there's a new phase when you play with it that comes straight after the potion phase, building your potion or building your pot. But yeah, I think that's the rules essentially in a nutshell.
Yeah, games, I think probably around 40 minutes.
I would say 40 minutes to an hour. It says 45 minutes on the box, but I think a couple have gone on a little bit longer than that, oddly enough.
Yeah, I think obviously that depends on how quickly your pot explodes and how likely you are to push your luck.
Much more on that in a minute. It's one of those games where I don't think adding more players would increase the runtime, because you take most of the action occurs simultaneously. There are options on ways to do that. The rules as written state that you just all go at your own pace and stop whenever you want to, until the final round, where you have to each basically hold your hand out with your ingredient in it. And when everybody's ready, you reveal that ingredient and you repeat that. Games might go on a little bit longer for us because we do that the entire way through, because I think it's a little bit more strategic to do that.
Yeah. So, for example, if I know that you've got 6 in your pot, I might,
decide to push your luck a bit more.
Push my luck a little bit more just to try and...
I can't remember whether that's actually in the rule book or not, or if we just house ruled that. But
no, I think that is in the rule book.
I think it is.
I think it's supposed to do that for every...
No, you're not. No, in the rule book, you're not.
Oh,
It states you just go at it, and when everybody's done, then you move on. We both think, I think, stop me if I'm wrong, but the game works a bit better if you do that final round approach to the simultaneous play.
Yeah.
But again, that might slow things down a little bit if you're playing with 4 people.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to add? I had my eye on this for quite a while. It was a very, very kind Christmas present from the person sitting across from me. It's a bit of a modern classic, I think. It's quite one of the bigger ones we've approached. And yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably it. Let's move on to scoring,
Okay.
So first, under our general category is components, and I would like to wade in here and start to talk about specifically the box.
Oh, God, yeah.
Here we go.
Okay, can I just put a little disclaimer at the start of all of this? Throughout our review here, I know we usually review base games, but because we got this as a mega box, we are going to be reviewing it as a full package. Yeah. So we are going to include anything you hear us talk about, the expansions are included in this. Mm-hmm. So this is not just the base game. I'll try to allude to major differences where I think if you are going to purchase just the base game, it's worth mentioning. But aside from that, take it as we are talking about the full package here, and the mega box itself, because your complaint is to do with the mega box.
It is absolutely
do go off,
mega box. So the mega box is massive. It is absolutely
unreasonably large.
It is unreasonably large, and so here's the thing: if you bought the base game plus the 2 individual expansions, it would take up less space on your shelf than the actual mega box, which kind of seems stupid.
Yeah.
And then added to that, if you open said mega box, there's no inserts or anything.
No.
There are 2, so there's 2 compartments.
There's a divider. There's a divider down the middle.
And here's the thing: the actual components don't even fit inside those compartments, so you've still got stuff sitting on top. And I just think, if you are proud of a game and you want to bundle it up, then put a little bit more care and thought into how you design that box, because it's really fucking irritating. It really annoys me. And you've still got loads of parts that are sloshing around all over the place. And because of that, setup actually takes arguably tear down takes a lot longer than it needs to be, because you're trying to assemble it all into this box when you know that as soon as you put it on the shelf, it's all going to slop around and fall out all over the place.
It's an incredibly awkward size. I don't know why they went for sort of... It's like
it's over 50 centimetres long, I reckon.
Yeah. It's just like massive surface area as opposed to just making it chunkier and deeper.
Yeah.
Like even if you compare it to something like Gloomhaven, which has 10 times the amount of the components, it's kind of a smaller shelf imprint because it's just so long.
Yes.
I don't know why I
and also quite wide as well. So it just doesn't fit neatly. It would never fit in a calyx.
No, absolutely
it doesn't
not.
fit on our ginormous bookshelf.
No.
It's just
awkward.
It's really awkward, and just have a little bit more care, guys. It's really disappointing.
Yeah,
I think that they didn't take some time just to think about how they packaged it up.
Yeah, just a bit more thought and a decent insert would have gone a very, very long way, I think, with this. But yeah, like Hannah says, I agree with her. It sloshes around in the box and everything just gets mixed up.
And as a result, then things are going to get damaged, aren't they?
Yeah,
more quickly because it's being knocked around, etc. However, that said, the artwork is absolutely lovely and really endearing. It really reminds me of the Discworld series and all the artwork on the books that's by
Paul Kidby.
Yeah. It's really lovely and appealing.
Yeah, it looks very cool out on the table. The big potion boards, everything's very, very big and chunky, and it's got that Kidby-esque art style to it. It's fun.
Yep, and I would say because of that, it's really memorable as well.
Yeah, it does stick out in the memory. I do agree with you there, yeah. On a components basis, everything's chunky enough, everything's well made. Like, I haven't got any major complaints with any of that.
A lot of the actual ingredients are very small and fiddly, which is probably a point worth mentioning. I don't think that's a criticism necessarily. I don't know how I should do it.
No, I think they have to be.
But they are quite small and fiddly, but it comes with some really nice bags.
Yes, it does, yeah.
And so they've thought about that, and that's really nice.
The actual bags, your bags, are really quite satiny and lush. They're nice. So, velvety.
Yeah, so they are really lovely.
Yeah.
What I will say, though, when you're playing the full game with both of the expansions, my God, is it a table hog?
Yeah, it's big.
It's really big. And for a game that doesn't feel... I feel like it's too big for what it is. I don't know how else to justify that.
I think that's fair. There's a footprint versus complexity thing here, and in terms of complexity, it's one of the larger footprints I've seen. Particularly, 2 players, it's big, but 4 players around the table because
you're going to need a huge table
because those potion boards are so big, and you've got so much laid out on the table,
and you've got other stuff that straps onto it and slides onto those.
Yeah,
those
with the expansions,
pots.
your board becomes larger and larger. It's actually quite this expansive thing. So you've got 4 people sitting around with that, and then you've got to need room for all the rest of it.
All your chips, of which there are 6 different colours, maybe.
Yeah, 6 to 7, I think. Yeah.
Plus a scoring board, plus the instructions on what each of the components do. It is large.
Absolutely. So it has got a huge table.
And again, would I score it down for that? No, not really.
No, but I think it's worth mentioning. Yeah, definitely worth mentioning. Okay, so what did you settle on?
Well, I also wondered whether you wanted to talk about the rule book.
Oh, yes, the rule book. Yeah, I really struggled with this rule book for some reason. For quite a simple game, I just found it quite poorly laid out. Nothing ever seemed to be whenever I refer to it, nothing ever seemed to be in the right place.
And I suppose my question to you is then, is that another Mega Box expansion issue where they've just not given it the love and the TLC that it really deserves?
Quite possibly.
By not thinking about it, and they've just taken all the 3 rule books and just...
Yeah, they have taken the 3 rule books and basically stapled them together.
Yeah.
And again, I think if you're producing a package like this, a little bit of extra care and attention goes a long way. Yeah. So what did you score it then?
So, I would have scored this a lot higher if it weren't for the way in which that it's packaged.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, as a result, I scored it 6 because I just think you could have done better, guys. Shit.
Yeah, fair enough. I gave it a 7. I think the art style and the look on the table goes a long way for me, but I do echo Hannah's complaints. I think the box and insert annoy you more than they do me, so I think that's fair, and you marked down an extra point.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so then on to our next category, which is complexity. So, as always, it's not necessarily about how complex something is or isn't, but it's how well the complexity serves the game.
Yep.
We also can think about things like analysis paralysis and also how much we argue about the rules.
Yeah.
There's very little rule arguing about this.
No, also, no time for analysis paralysis. You're throwing things in the pot.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's very luck-based, so there's no analysis paralysis.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll be quite direct with this one. I think this is a really elegant system that creates a game that I think most people could pick up fairly easily, that are vaguely board game experienced. I think
it's really good for novices, like people that are quite fresh to board games. I can see you bringing this out
I
planning.
think I could see people with the 2 expansions, eyes glazing over if they were very, very novice in board games. Like I tried to think of, bringing this out with grandparents with the expansions might cause some.
But the base game, absolutely.
Seizure. But I think it is a very, very elegant system. I think it is quite unique compared to the things I played before. And I think the complexity really does serve what it is. I think it is just complex enough. I think if you subtract the expansions away, for me it's not complex enough, but that's very much a personal preference. I like my games a little bit meatier. But I think with the expansions, I think it is exactly as it should be.
But I also think what's really lovely about this in terms of the expansions is there are different elements to that. So it might be, for example, that you don't play with the alchemist part of it.
Yeah, it's quite modular.
It's quite modular, so you can decide what it is that you want to do for that game session. And also you talked about it as well, about whether we randomise what the components do.
Yeah.
So again, if you want something a bit more challenging or a bit more like off the wall, then you can do
less
that.
Balanced, yeah.
So you can pick kind of.
There's a lot of player agency.
Yeah.
There's a lot of player agency, and I've seen people talk about taking just little aspects of some of the expansions and popping those in their games, a bit like chucking ingredients in a pot, which I think is very thematic. You can take from it what you will, and it'll still. I think the core rule set is strong enough that it still works.
Yeah.
And it still works and doesn't take anything away from the game. That basic premise that the whole game, the foundation of the game is built on, is very easy to understand and very solid.
Yeah.
So I think it serves it really, really well. Yeah. I think it's quite very, very much bang on, this one, and I've given it an 8 as a result.
I have also given it an 8 for exactly the same reasons. And again, one of the things that I also think, because of that, not simplicity necessarily, but how accessible those rules are, you can play it with a huge span of generations.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what really makes Quacks stand out for me.
Yeah, I think, you need to play with some vaguely novice board gamers, or you want to get your 10 and your 12-year-old around the table. It works for both of those things really well. Likewise, even experienced board gamers that want to turn their brains off a little bit for, you don't want to play Terra Mystica, you want something a little bit more chill. Again, it works because there's enough meat on the bones for it to work in all those.
And you can pump it up a little bit with your expansions.
Absolutely. So it works in all of those theatres and such. So I think it's really, really good for that.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to shelf life, which includes things like value for money and also replayability. Yeah. So what does the Mega Box retail for?
So the last time I looked, it was 50-something quid.
Last time you looked, you mean like 2 minutes ago.
Don't let them look behind the curtain, Hannah.
Okay, so 50 odd quid.
The standalone game itself, just the base game, goes for about 35.
So look, we veer towards heavy games. Do I think that I see us playing this forever? I think potentially yes.
Okay.
Mainly because I think I will always want to keep it on the shelf because it has got such a wide appeal. I think it's really good for kids, for older people. I think it's really good for having friends round. Do I think that we would keep playing it as a couple, as 2-player? I think that's a different question.
Yeah, that was the question I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's one of those that's great to have in the collection. Do I reach for this now after over 10 games that we played? No.
However, what I will say is that we started off playing just the vanilla and then we quickly added in the expansions.
Yeah.
And I do think the expansions really made it.
Yeah.
So in terms of value for money, I think, yes, your £50 price point is better because it includes your expansions that I think are much needed, particularly when you are more into heavy games or you play a lot as a couple or as a pair.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think the mega box, despite what we marked it down for in components, is the best option here, I think. Because I think the base game is a little bit too much on the light side for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think it's got much staying power. I think the expansions do offer a lot of extra dimension to the game.
But I suppose my question is, would I pay £50 for that? I'm not sure. I'm on the fence.
I think £50 for a game and 2 fairly significant expansions is
really good value for money.
Very good value for money.
Would I pay £50 just off the cuff
now
for
that
this?
You know.
Now that I've played it, I don't know. I guess that very much depends on how you play and what it is that you want from a board game.
Yeah, I think that's very much down to personal preference.
If it was on sale, absolutely.
Yeah.
Even if you're not £10 off that, definitely. I think that's an absolute bargain, an absolute steal.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I'm at with it. I agree with you that it's a good thing to have in the collection. I think it spans generations and spans board gaming ability, which is always a nice thing to have on the shelf. I think if we think about it from the perspective of us, playing as a couple, I think the shelf life isn't there for me. Yeah. I think I have grown quite bored of it quite quickly.
Yep.
But I do think if you pick up the mega box, it is very, very good value for money. So, swings and roundabouts and all that.
So what did you score it then?
6.
Okay, so I scored it a 7 because I think I was looking at not specifically from a couple's rating.
Sure.
But,
yeah. I think as long as that's clear. Yeah. Fine. Okay. All right. Is Quacks any fun?
I really struggled with how to score this and how to answer it. And I think maybe we'll perhaps pick on some of this more as we talk about our 2-player rating categories. Yeah, I enjoy it. I do have a good time. I think I have had more of a good time the more expansions we've added because it's added more diversity and more play options, and it's kept that sort of spice alive. Is it the most fun that I've had playing a board game? No. But yeah, it is really appealing and really heartwarming and endearing. And I don't... Yeah, it's hard.
Okay. So I'm going to go off you.
Okay, all right, off you go.
This game hates me.
Oh, God, yeah, okay.
I've never felt a game actually have an emotional stance on me, personally. But I feel like this one does. I have... Dear listener, the worst luck I've ever experienced in any board game in this game.
So the way that I like to think about this is you used up all your good luck meeting and then marrying me.
This might be very, very true, and that's just karmically manifested in this game.
I think if you've listened to our podcast before, we've also talked about Al's horrendous luck, and in general, never let him roll a dice.
I like luck. I've always been clear that I like luck in board games.
But you are punished by it.
But this game hates me.
But this game specifically.
And I'm sure you can attest to that.
This is true.
I will have a bag of 37 ingredients, and I will pick out 7 cherry bombs in a row. Every time. Not every time. I'm exaggerating for comedic effect. But I can't win this game because I just...
You have horrific luck.
And I'm not a massive gambler by nature. I'm not pushing my luck too far. I'm just vaguely trying to keep up. And it just kicks me in the teeth every single time. And I know it's a me thing. I know it's luck. And I feel really, really mean. But I don't have as much fun playing it because I cannot get any fucking where because the bag just beats me over the head.
I mean, he's not lying, guys. He really isn't. Like, I think the last game that we played, it was just cherry bomb after cherry bomb after cherry bomb. Well, I was quite happily, merrily,
Yeah, I mean, you were getting halfway along your pot and I was just still stuck,
exploding.
just exploding every single turn, just desperately trying to keep up.
Yeah.
And I think there is a thing there. I think it is worth mentioning that I think, and we'll come to this a bit more later, but as a 2-player experience where we like to sit down in a competitive game and put our wits against each other, if you have a bad run of luck in this, there's nothing you can do.
No.
You can try every mitigation the game has, which I do, to try and combat that. But at the end of the day, if you're just drawing nothing but duds, I am not a bad loser. I don't tend to get angry at board games. This is the closest I've come to table flipping out of any game I think I've ever played, because I'm just like, I can't do anything about this. I'm just sitting here and this is just happening to me. And
But what I would also say is that you are just incredibly unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people would have the same experience that you have. And they
might.
But there are also ways the game has designed and built in the game to kind of mitigate that. So, for example, on your victory track, if you are...
rat tails. I didn't mention those in the rules, yeah.
You didn't mention it. But if you are significantly behind, you can look on your victory scoring thing, and however many rat tails there are between you and the leader, you get to move your water pot up. So it's a really nice way of being able to level things.
There's a rat token that you can put that basically gives you sort of a head start on the next turn.
Yeah. And that's a really lovely way of levelling things, particularly if you're playing with kids, for example, or people that really are, if you're completely shit out of luck, like you are.
which is me. But even with those, it didn't help. I still lose by a significant margin.
Yeah.
And I know it's personal, and obviously take it with a pinch of salt, but I cannot divorce my experience from my rating.
Yeah. And as, again, if you've listened to us before, I'm not such a massive fan of luck-based games.
Yeah, you're far more less luck's better.
Yeah, I prefer a little bit more strategy with them, and because of that, I think it doesn't hold the same appeal for me. Hence why perhaps I have less fun playing this. But it is really endearing, and it is really like it is a lovely package, and I think.
Yeah, I think it nails the theme.
Your mileage might vary depending on you.
I think it nails the theme. It's a lovely madcap experience, as it should be. It's a fun game. Do I have fun playing it? No.
So how did you score it then?
4.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So I scored it a 6.
Okay.
I think it's okay. It's a good game.
Yeah.
Just not the most fun I've ever had. But again, our personal preferences I think are coming into place here.
And that is based on experience. I think as a game, I think it should be a lot more fun. But my experience of playing it has not been. And I think you've got to ask yourself the question, would that bother me if you ended up being... If what happens to me in this game happened to you, would you find that really unfun and frustrating?
Most people have one bad game. You just have all of them.
All of them, yeah. But it happened to me, it could happen to you. How do you feel about that? Ask yourself that question and then use that to make your decision about whether or not you'll find it fun.
Okay, so should we top up our scores under the general
Yep, let's do that.
category?
So that gives us an overall general rating of 6.5. So as always, we round, so that's a 7, but there's definitely a 6/7, I think.
Yeah. I think it would probably be higher if it weren't for that fucking god-awful box.
And my luck. All right, so shall we move on to our 2-player ratings?
Absolutely. So the first under our 2-player rating scale category is table talks. That includes also things like getting to know you and that sort of discourse and discussion that you have whilst playing.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. This is a really interesting one. Because is there much table talk as part of the game? No. But is it a game that lets you chat while you play it? Yes.
And for that reason, I think it is an amazing date game.
Yeah, I can see that.
A really nice way of spending an evening with somebody.
Yeah. It's really fun. It's really light-hearted. You
said it's really fun after you saying that it was not fun at all for you.
Fun in concept. Fun in concept. In practice, if you're me, less so. Anyway, moving on. It's got that atmosphere to it that's more conducive to having a laugh. You know, this is not a serious capital B board game. You know, this is something to have a laugh with.
What I would say is, again, as you add your expansions, there is more discussion at the table about what you're doing. I think one of the things that I really struggled with the vanilla was that actually you put your hand into a bag, you draw a chip, you have it in closed fists, and then you put it down on the board. Actually, there is no discourse.
No.
around that.
No,
and so I
isn't.
think very quickly I formed some very negative judgments around that. But actually,
as you've added expansions,
we've added expansions, and also as we've got our head around the rules and actually, play it more for fun rather than just learning the rules, I've actually softened a little bit on this.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's a fair point. It was one of those games that just has the space in the room for it, I think, which is, as you say, a great date game as such.
Yeah.
Have this few glasses of wine. It's fun in that sense.
Yeah.
You have a laugh with it.
So how did you score it then?
So I scored it a 6.
Yep. So I scored it a 7, mainly because I think that whilst actually there is no head-to-head talking, it's a really free-form, easy game, and you can quite easily go off and have conversations whilst you're playing it at the same time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's a really rare quality, actually, in a board game. We don't have many on our shelves, that you can just have a natter
or banter or whatever while playing it.
Yeah.
Not even connected to the game, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so then on to our next one, which is competitiveness. Okay. You go.
This is if you want to test your wits against somebody, this is not it. This is not a competitive game.
No.
It is a competitive game, but it is not a competitive game.
However, there is that push you luck element, and so I think when you aren't absolutely decimating your opponent because your opponent has horrendous luck,
cursed by
and it's cursed.
Somebody at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Then I would say that there is that ability to go, well, actually, they've got so many cherries, therefore I can probably risk it. And I think that push your luck component might be a bit more pronounced and a bit more fun, which would up that competitiveness. I'm stretching here a little bit.
This is not a game you play to beat somebody else up. This is a game you play for the fun of the experience.
Yes.
And if that is your bag, lovely, fine. But this category is what it is, and I'm going to score it as such. This is not a competitive game in the slightest. It is far, far too much luck involved. There's far, far too little decision space.
Well, actually, again, I also disagree with that, because I think there are real choices that can be made around, so if your pot explodes, whether you take the victory points or whether you go shopping for new items. I also think in terms of, what ingredients you buy is also can be quite strategic. So sometimes I will just go for maximum value and spend all my points, or it might be that actually no, because of my alchemist expansion spell I'm trying to go for, I might really focus on something else. So I think it does allow that strategic depth, but does that immediately feel like I'm in competition with you? I'm not fighting over resources. That's. So I think there's a difference between strategy versus that feeling of competitiveness.
I get this point in a lot of games where I'm kind of like, right, pull your chair forward. It's the video game player variant of leaning forward a little bit with the controller, where you get locked in. You're like, right, okay, we're on now. I'm gonna take you on. I've never had that once in this. Never ever.
That's not what this game is.
No, it isn't. But I think I want to make it really clear that I don't think it ticks that box at all. And that's not a negative statement about the game. I think you just need to be very aware going into this that if that's what you're after, you're not going to get it yet.
No, agreed completely. I mean, how did you score it then?
3.
Oh, really? So I scored it a 6.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
I feel like that element is there.
Yeah,
and I
don't see it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't see it. But maybe that's because I'm so terrible at it.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you play with someone that isn't jinxed, then...
Yeah, you might be a little bit closer. But yeah, that's my honest opinion of it.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
All right, so final one, scalability. So really the question is, well, is this crying out for more players?
Yeah, and this is an interesting one. Because mechanically, as a game... No, it works perfectly fine at any player count as far as I can see.
Yeah.
I don't think you're losing anything mechanically playing this as 2 players.
Doesn't make it longer particularly.
No.
It doesn't. Even I think some of the things that you see when you've got more players is that you get somebody that streaks into the lead whereas actually you don't have this with this because you've got the wrapped out element to be able to
Yeah.
balance it. So I don't think that happens either. They thought quite carefully about that.
Yeah, so mechanically, works perfectly well as 2 players. However, we're going to have a heart and head conversation here, because this game screams out for more people around the table.
Do you reckon?
Absolutely. I think it would change the fun factor for me quite substantially, because I think there's just a lot more going on. There's a lot more banter, there's a lot more laughter, there's a lot more fun. It's the kind of game that suits a 4-player environment a lot better than a 2-player environment, in my opinion.
See, that's really interesting, because so part of me was thinking, well, actually, I would just really like to play with somebody that isn't you.
See my face again, are you?
No, but I mean, the luck issue aside,
Yeah.
I do think it would be nice to play with somebody.
Less like kicking a puppy.
Yeah, a little bit. But I don't know. I think it would be too easy to lose track of what's happening.
Oh, I just think there'd be so much more going
digress
on.
And go off.
And I think I think you just have so much better time with more people involved. And I think that's in a spirit what it's meant to be.
Yeah. No, I do agree with that.
So it's a real heart and head thing here, and I've gone my heart on this one. And I've rated it quite lowly because I think it's screaming out for more people. Mm-hmm. Just for that shared experience of a very light-hearted board game. And I think because for my money the competitiveness is lacking, I think you add more people, their competitiveness becomes less of an issue for me, because I think it's just about a shared experience. And I think that's what's missing for me. I think I'd quite happily crack this out if we had an extra 2 people sitting around the table. But for you and me, not so much, which makes me rate this lowly on this scale. Because I do have FOMO, and I do think it's crying out for more people, but not mechanically. I want to make that absolutely clear. If you worry that you're buying this and you're playing as a couple or a pair, is it going to work? Yes, it absolutely will work. It's the same game. You're not going to lose anything mechanically. But I think you will miss that social shared experience element of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. So I rated it a 6.
I rated it a 3.
Because I wanted to rate it a 5, but I thought that was a cop-out because it was directly in the middle, so I thought, well, I have to push it one way or the other. And do I think that it is slightly better at a 2-player? Which I think it probably is, because I can see us playing this with friends and actually us forgetting to play the game because we're too busy talking about other stuff.
Yeah, but isn't that okay sometimes?
Yes, but doesn't that mean that it doesn't work so well as multiplayer?
I don't know. But that's what's missing from me.
Yeah.
So that's why I've scored it the way I've scored it. I think this would be more fun with more people for me.
Okay, all right.
Massively more fun with more people.
Fair enough. Should we add those up then?
Yep. So I think it's fair to say that we've come from very different ends of the scale on this one, but we've settled on an average of 5. So take that as you will.
It's definitely playable at 2, and I think it is still a good game for 2.
Yeah.
It just depends what you want from a board game, and it's certainly not broken at all.
No, it is not broken
And you can
at
play
all,
it as a
and you can
two-player
play it
game
too. So it's one of those cases where it's like, don't listen too much to the score. Listen to mine and Hannah's varying viewpoints and see what resonates with you more. Really, as a consumer, think about what we've said and what side of the fence you fall on, and go with your gut from that. Really.
Yeah.
Right, so thank you again for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, be good to each other, have fun, play lots of board games.